Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome. I'm Shazia joining you on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM 93.5 FM. I'm really excited to have you all join me today for a discussion on topics related to nutrition, which I hope may serve you, your loved ones, your family members and those that you influence with better health and well-being. As always, and before I get into the topic of the day, I want to remind listeners that all information shared on the show is general in nature. For anyone with medical issues or concerns, whether related to things I talk about today or unrelated, please do seek out medical advice from your own medical practitioner. Remember that your health is unique to you, and it's important that you always seek out advice that is actually relevant to yourself as an individual. So our long-awaited summer is in full swing. We've all been enjoying the beautiful sunny days, no doubt, already, and the longer days, lighter, brighter evenings are amazing for lifting our moods and doing more with ourselves. Clearly, we are not behaving as we do in the winter, so it's time for reflection as the seasons change so that we can get the best of what the changes have to offer and make this a kind of way to improve on ourselves, look at our health and well-being to get the most out of the summer and beyond, and prepare ourselves for the upcoming seasons. This is equally important from a nutritional perspective as it is from a behaviour perspective. So, when there is so much more temptation to want to eat out, to skip meals, to stop spending that time in the kitchen, to actually focus on preparing meals and things like that, it becomes even more imperative that we start to kind of take that opportunity back and realise that actually this is another opportunity for change, to give our bodies that time and that effort that we need to give us the summer health and nutrition that we actually seek and desire. So I want to talk about a few of the common issues, tips maybe, whatever you might want to consider them, that we come across in natural health, and these are also discussed in the conventional health model as well. Of course, there are so many others out there, but given the short time and space that we have today to discuss these, I'm going to focus on a couple of these and try to expand on what they are, what you can do, what the issues may be, and how you can incorporate things into your daily life to kind of get the most out of these things whilst making sure that you're not compromising on your health. Personally, I can't remember when we last had the 30-something temperature days, but clearly as the climate reaches such temperatures, we have to give some consideration, rightfully so, to the risks it may pose to our health and that of our families, as well as the benefits that it can bring, based on what we decide to do and what not to do. Think about dehydration, for example, and the possibility of heat stroke, and you will understand that it's important to be sensible whilst out on these hotter days, whilst enjoying the benefit that the day has to bring. Thinking about those who are more vulnerable, including the elderly, babies and young children, and others who may be less able, is also really important. And what it means is that we have to have preparations in place to allow for these people to also enjoy the summer while staying safe, while staying protected. So what things can you do over the summer period to stay safe, cool and comfortable whilst keeping energized to make the most of this wonderful season? So as I mentioned, hydration is one of the biggest things that we talk about, whether that's in the summer or outside of the summer, whether that's on a normal day, whether that's on any other day. So it's needless to say, we need to normally drink more. Now that kind of goes without saying for most of us. There are going to be individual situations where this may not apply, and I'll talk a little bit about these, but there is the common advice to drink 8 glasses of water a day. Now where this came from and how this applies may be subject to some controversy, and there are other ways that I found to be more useful in terms of working out how much water you need, and you'll find this when you look at the research that's out there. We're individual, so 8 glasses a day isn't what we all need, I don't believe anyway, as a practitioner. So I would always do your research into what is actually required for yourself, what your body needs, and then to kind of hold back when you're overdoing it, because you have to remember that over drinking is a problem as well as under drinking. If you look more into this, you will find that information may be based on drinking the number of ounces based on your body weight. I find that to be a more accurate way of working out the fluid intake that is required. But again, this is kind of part and parcel of all the other factors that we need to take into account when it comes to working out what you actually need. It's not an exact science in any way. It's about looking at and responding to your body's needs and reflecting and changing as and when required. This may be altered depending on several factors, including and not limited to whether or not you fall into a special group or are on a fluid restriction diet, or you have a medical condition. So for an elderly patient, that may be different to a younger, more athletic patient. For someone who's a child, for example, compared to a lactating mom. These are all kind of factors that we need to kind of take into account before we start to recommend the amount of litres of fluid that they may need to take in on a day-to-day basis. What is important is that whatever you calculate to be your daily required amount, you need to spread this out throughout the day. You don't take the water in one go. I mean, most of us can't do this anyway. It's largely uncomfortable, but we have had instances in practice where people have done this and got themselves into severe trouble because they've diluted their blood to the point where their blood pressure has dropped, and it's been an issue for them. Nonetheless, maintaining water intake is important on any day, but even more so on the hotter days to prevent fatigue and dehydration, for example. Remember that as temperatures increase, our bodies will respond by sweating more, and this allows us to cool down. So this sweating reflex, if you like, is there to protect us. It's going to allow our bodies to cool. It's going to allow us to get this kind of balance that our body has, this homeostatic mechanism that we know of, back to a balance that is acceptable, that doesn't cause any harm to us physically, physiologically. We want to be able to make sure that our body is functioning its best, and our bodies are fine-tuned to do this. So it's going to respond to external changes as well as internal changes. Now, if we're not drinking enough, our body is going to conserve water, and one of the signs that we know that this may be the case is that we're going to pass water in terms of urine less often. And when we do tend to pass water, it may be more yellow in colour, so a deeper colour, and it may be less in quantity, and it may even have an odour which isn't normal. So these are kind of factors that we may sort of find happen to be the case in people who are not drinking enough water, and perhaps their body is sort of starting to show signs of dehydration. The reason for this is that the body is trying to conserve water, so it's trying to hang on to what it's actually already got. We need water for several processes of the body. A large part of our body is made up of water. We want to be able to have these processes continuing in times of when we're in adequate water hydration as well as in times of dehydration. Now, symptoms of dehydration can be variable. They may go from, feeling thirsty, feeling fatigued, lightheaded, dizzy, feeling tired, irritable. All these things may, manifest themselves if you're not drinking enough. So it's good to be mindful. You may also find that your skin doesn't look as good as it normally does. I mean, on the back of your hand, if you're not able to, sort of have your skin bounce back after pinching it, that may also be a sign of dehydration. The other important thing to note is that we also lose salts or electrolytes when we're sweating, and it's not just the water that we're losing. So these are minerals such as sodium, potassium, magnesium, and the body needs these to maintain fluid balance. And as I mentioned, these can be lost through sweat. So it's not a case of just replacing water. So, deciding on, having a 2-litre bottle by your side and saying, I'm going to consume this by the end of the day isn't really addressing the concern here. You're replacing your water, which is great, but you're not replacing your electrolytes or your salts. So you need to bear this in mind. And as I mentioned, consuming large amounts of water on its own can be problematic. It can be quite dangerous because what we're doing is we're diluting our blood. We're making these electrolytes even more sparse than they already are. We're going to be dropping blood pressure and causing ourselves a whole load of other issues. So when you're sweating excessively, when you're out in the heat, think about replacing these electrolytes, these salts as well. Now, think back to a time perhaps when you or a family member or someone may have had a bout of vomiting or diarrhea, and they've perhaps been to see a doctor. They may have been given rehydration salts. So it's very much similar to what those are. So, other than a sachet, you may find these in drinks, you may find them as supplements. There's a lot on the market now in terms of electrolyte replacement. And it's worth having a look at what's out there on the market. You want to make sure that you go for something that isn't laden with sugars and sweeteners and other things that are not going to be so conducive to good health. You want to sort of source a nice supplement, a nice electrolyte drink that's going to give you something in terms of the electrolyte balance that you need, as well as hydrating your body. Sweating and kind of loss of electrolytes and water is more pronounced when you're exercising, particularly in the heat. So if you are keeping active and you need to maintain activity to some level in the heat, depending on what your body needs, and again, speak to your medical practitioner if you've not exercised before or if you're trying to do something new. You want to then bear in mind that you're going to be losing salts probably faster and in larger quantities. So again, this becomes even more imperative that you replace these salts as long as the water that you need. The last thing you want to do is become depleted and suffer the consequences of that. Now, what you need to do is to ensure that you're prepared. So I'm going to talk a little bit about preparation and what you can do in a little while. But if you find that you run out of sourcing these things from a commercial perspective, or from a something that you can buy, then you can actually make a homemade electrolyte drink. And this is as simple as mixing the juice of a freshly squeezed lemon with a pinch of pink salt and adding it to around a teaspoon of pure honey in water. Now you can mix this up, stir it, keep it in the fridge, and you can utilize this as an electrolyte drink. I wouldn't do this too often because you've got sugars in there, but it's an option that you can use occasionally, and then you can support yourself whilst you seek out a commercial or a ready-made product. Before I continue, I would like to remind listeners that the information shared on the show is for general purposes only. If you have any medical issues or concerns, related or unrelated, please do speak to your own medical provider. The aim of the show is actually to give you the information, to kind of share things that you perhaps may not have thought about before, to kind of remind you of things that you know and perhaps have forgotten about. It's kind of like to bring that information and share it sort of far and wide, so people can understand that there's so much more that they can do for themselves and for their families. It's not about providing medical advice. We're all individual. Our bodies do respond in different ways. So it's important that we kind of take this on board and utilize the benefit of having our medical practitioners, our specialists, whoever it may be that you're working with, for that kind of guided advice and that individual advice, so that you get the benefit of all of this information combined. So, as I mentioned, preparation is key. Now, preparing yourself, your families, those with you who perhaps not so able to do this for themselves, is absolutely crucial. And I know whilst it's tempting to kind of like not want to do this, you can cause yourself harm if you're not actually taking the time and the effort to prepare yourself when you're preparing a day out, for example, whether you're going to the beach for the day, whether you're going for a nice walk, whether you're going, out for a picnic, whatever it may be, prepare the day, and you can do this quite easily. It doesn't have to be anything, it's nothing special, nothing sort of, you don't have to go out your way to do things. Sometimes and oftentimes the ingredients that you need are actually just in your kitchen. And, if they're not, you'll find ways and means to do this as you learn more about nutrition. So think about filtered water. Now, bottled water isn't something that we advocate because we want to go for water that you filtered yourself. The reason being is that water will contain chemicals that may not be so helpful to health. So think about filtering your water and then taking these bottles out with you. It's so easily done. The most easiest way to do this is to invest in a home water filtered jug, and you can do this in quantities and fill up your bottles the day before, a couple of days before, however it works for you, and you can take these out with you. Herbal teas are great. They don't have to be consumed hot if you're not wanting heat in the hot weather. I can totally understand. You can go for the cold infusions. You can make a tea as normal, allow it to cool down, and then take that out with you. The herbs in there, the peppermint, for example, ginger, lemon, whatever it is that you like. They can be really refreshing and very nutritious, as kind of adding those phytochemicals or nutrients to your everyday food choices. So it's an easy way to get those nutrients in when you don't really have to think about them so much. Homemade infused water. So I have talked about this before. So this is where you're looking for spices that you can tolerate, fruits that you like, and literally just dropping them into filtered water and allowing them to infuse. Whether you do this for a couple of hours or in the fridge overnight, you've got a way and means to kind of hydrate yourself without getting the boredom of just pure water on its own. Think about coconut water, which is rich in electrolytes. Again, go for one that isn't sweetened with artificial sweeteners. You want to go for a good quality coconut water. These are all great options to consider when it comes to supporting yourself with upping your fluid intake. Drinks are a really easy way to sabotage our health in the summer because so many of them taste great, but they're laden with sugars and sweeteners and all sorts of other things, colours. You want to try and avoid these as much as you can. I know it's easy to walk past a stall and see these chill drinks and you want to kind of just grab something because you're thirsty and you haven't really prepared yourself. But in the longer term, this is what we're trying to avoid. A one-off here and there, it's not a problem. This is not about going to extremes. It's about seeking that middle path, and we get that from our faith as well. But it's kind of looking at ways and means that you can support your body in the season. Enjoy it while you're going through it, and you're saving money as well. So there are so many wins in preparing your own food. Making those kind of preparations, that it's a no-brainer at the end of the day. But it's a journey, and I understand if you're at the beginning of the journey, take it slow, but start to make change wherever you are. These sugars and sweeteners that I've mentioned, they're oftentimes hidden, they're not obvious. They do cause us problems in the longer term. And and if we're consuming just a couple of these a day, we're getting loads of sugar in, and they're easily unaccounted for. A quick and easy and sort of revitalizing mineral water that you can make yourself. You can use infused cucumbers, lemon and lime in water. You can even add a bit of ginger to that. Allow it to sort of soak for a couple of hours, and then consume it after that, or leave it overnight and consume it. If you want to make it into a smoothie, that's another way that you can actually consume that. Why I like smoothies over infused waters is because you consume and actually, take up the whole load of ingredients that you've actually utilized without having to throw them away. And if you're using organic and unwaxed lemons, you're using sort of quality ingredients, you don't want to be throwing them away. You want to be utilizing them, as in consuming them completely. So that's a really good way that you can actually sort of not only cleanse the body, but provide nutrients, provide water. You're hitting so many birds with one stone. What you also can do is think about ways that you can get water in, not necessarily from drinking. Now, the example that I gave you in terms of the lemon and the ginger tonic, if you like, not only does that cleanse the stomach, helps with digestion, detoxifies, it stops you from consuming other sugary drinks. You can actually now look at food groups as well. What do I mean by that? You can look at fruits and vegetables which have high water content. So what am I talking about? Think about watermelons. Now, watermelons are everywhere right now, and when they're kind of in their chill state and you're having one, as a piece of fruit as part of your meal, they're so satisfying. That's a really good way to get phytonutrients in. Lycopene is very rich in the red melon. Such an amazing phytonutrient, a phytochemical and antioxidant that you can actually utilize for your health benefits. Think about other melons as well, strawberries, other sort of berry type of fruits, citrus, so your lemons, your limes, your oranges. Cucumbers are amazing, so why not have them as a snack with some hummus on the side? You can utilize those very easily. Pineapple is great, celery, munch on some lettuce. All these are ways that you can consume water as well as phytonutrients, from a food perspective. Smoothies and salads are a great way to get these in. So just think about chopping things up into a bowl the night before and taking those out with you on the day that you're out for a picnic. As I mentioned, carrot sticks, cucumbers, you can have those with your hummus. Healthy dips are great as well to take out with you. You can make some healthy snacks. You can do kale chips. So rather than going for conventional chips, make some chips, some crisps at home, take those out with you. Finger foods are great, and they're so easy to make. I'm sure, like me, you'll be tempted with ice cream at this time of year. It's cooling, it tastes amazing. It's just kind of one of those kind of social things that you have to do. You feel quite a recluse when you don't buy an ice cream when everyone else is having an ice cream. So you can actually make these yourself. So this is kind of more of a, I'm thinking down the ice lolly kind of preparation rather than ice cream. I mean, if you can Google lots of healthy ice cream recipes. I mean, they're normally based on coconut milk, and then you add a fruit of your choice. You can add protein powders to those. You can add butters to it to make it more nutritious. I would Google them and see what you like in terms of ingredients, and then try making those at home. But in terms of ice lollies, what can you actually do? So if you've got kids, this is going to be a really good option to get them off the shop version of ice lollies and what you can buy when you're out there. Easy to make, again, very nutritious. You can use natural sweeteners like honey or fruit juice if you want to. I think honey and maple syrup are good options. Again, you probably want to kind of limit the amount that you use, particularly if you're using sweet fruit. Use berries, use kiwi, use mango, pineapple, watermelons. Again, you're getting lots of vitamins, phytonutrients. It's an all-win situation. And I've got an example of a recipe that you can use. So you want to use equal portions of diced mixed berries, for example, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, and add these to the same amount of an unsweetened milk alternative. So you want to use maybe coconut milk. Cashew milk is great because it's very creamy. You could use almond milk. If you do dairy, you can use dairy. So maybe use about 250 mils, 250 grams of each one. You want to combine these with a sweetener of your choice. So again, maple syrup or honey are quite good. I'd limit the quantities to begin with and then increase as needed. But remember, you want to utilize the sweetness from the fruit itself rather than having to add more sweetener. And then you can have optional extras, natural flavorings like vanilla, for example. And you're simply blending these ingredients together until nice and smooth. And then you pour these into your lolly molds and freeze for a few hours until set. And then they're ready to enjoy. So why not use these as options that you can try at home with your kids? And even kind of entertain your guests with them, see what they think, and change things around. If you didn't like the berry version, choose something different. Again, there are so many recipes online. The world is your oyster. You've got to start trying to experiment with what you like, and give yourself the opportunity to kind of get these into your body whilst enjoying the summer months and whilst kind of making it a social thing as well. On the same note, it's really tempting to reach for ice cold drinks, as I mentioned before, particularly on the hotter days. My advice would be to avoid the really ice cold drinks because they can send your body into shock. So you don't want to be shocking your body and upsetting your normal digestive processes. It's probably better to go for something that's room temperature. I hear you when you're saying, how is that going to work for an ice lolly? Yep, that might be your kind of exception to the rule. But in terms of drinks, I would go for something that's kind of slightly cooler or kind of room temperature, just to kind of not upset this kind of digestive imbalance. You don't want to be sort of getting yourself into an uncomfortable state and then, finding that you're not absorbing nutrients because you're continuing to shock your body with cold drinks. If you have the odd one, it's not a problem, but you don't want to be doing this all day. Talking about fluids, ideally coffee should be limited. Many of us will go for coffee first thing in the morning and then throughout the day and even before bed. And really the caffeine in coffee is what is the actual problem. So in minor quantities, it's not a problem. Coffee the coffee bean itself is rich in phytonutrients. So it's not that it's not beneficial to health. It's the way we're consuming coffee and the quantities and the timings and these kinds of issues that actually make this a concern in some ways. If you are a coffee drinker, have your coffee in the morning, in the early hours, but you want to do this following a nutritious breakfast. So you don't want to be doing coffee first thing on an empty stomach. You want to be, giving your body the nutrition it needs, having fasted overnight, and then, give your body a chance to have its kind of fix if you need that, and then work towards limiting coffee and caffeine. Caffeine may increase core body temperature and cause disturbances in sleep. So this is where you want to be mindful about what it is that you're actually doing to your body. You don't want to be upsetting sleep. I mean, it's hard enough to sleep on a hot night. You want to be in a restful state to be able to get to sleep. So try and consume your stimulant type foods and drinks earlier in the day if you do need to have them. Utilising alternatives such as a turmeric latte, opting for mocktails, so these are where you're not consuming alcoholic based or stimulant based drinks, for example, can all be helpful. So I hope that there are some ideas that you can use there that I've discussed already in getting nutrients into your diet whilst enjoying your summer safely. Please stay with me. We're going for a short break now. So you're listening to me, Shazia, on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM, 93.5 FM. Back with you in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Nutrition Show. You're joining me, Shazia, on Unity FM, 93.5 FM. We'll be diving into more tips to stay healthy over the summer shortly. Just a reminder though, before we do that our discussion here is for information purposes only and therefore does not constitute medical advice. For any health issue or concern that you may be experiencing yourself, a loved one or a family member, something that's related to today's show or otherwise, please do consult with your own medical practitioner. So what else could be important over the summer months? So a common thing that we talk about is sun protection. Now there's lots of information out there and it can be quite confusing, it can be quite controversial. I just want to kind of give you the tips and the kind of advice as to what I would recommend for you to do. Obviously when I'm working with my clients in practice, I can make that more fine-tuned and I can advise them on products. But I can't do that for the general public because I don't know you, I don't know what you'd need. But I can give you some pointers and some hints as to what you may want to look into when you're deciding on sun protection and getting the benefit from the sun whilst avoiding the harm that the sun rays may impart when we're irresponsible or when we're not taking sun exposure seriously enough. So we need sun exposure, right? It's important. Why? For the vitamin D exposure. So that sun hitting our skin is what's going to generate the production of vitamin D. Now, I have talked about vitamin D on previous shows purely because of the importance of vitamin D. I cannot state how important it is for us to be optimized in our vitamin D status to ensure that we're getting the health that we actually need. Now, vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It has hormonal-like benefits. It modulates our immune system. So it does so much more than help with our bone health. I can't sort of stress enough how much I work with my clients in practice in optimizing the levels of vitamin D. I know I did this for myself. I was very low when I started studying nutrition, and I had my blood tested. I found out what my levels were. I looked to what I needed to get them to. Now this can vary between individuals, and we work to a scale. And I supplemented with vitamin D, whether I needed a booster to get me up to a level and then maintain it, or whether I just needed to maintain, depending on what my levels were. And I found that my health improved quite a lot, actually. And I did the same for my family. Thank God. It was very much meaningful in terms of change, and I recommend this to everyone who is listening. A vitamin D test is very simple. It's something that you can request from your GP. It's something that you can do privately. It's a blood spot test, very much like a diabetes check, on your blood. It's very easy to do. Seek medical advice. Seek a practitioner's sort of advice on what you need to do once you got your blood levels done, and it's very easy to do. So we need that vitamin D level correct, and this is an ideal time of year when we can actually support our vitamin D production naturally. Now, adequate vitamin D status, as I mentioned, is foundational to our health. We'll see this. And, it's oftentimes argued that we don't get enough sun exposure, particularly being in the UK. And that is actually true. So we want to make the most of the sunshine while we've got it, not just for the mood lifting benefits, but also for the vitamin D status. So vitamin D, is going to be compromised in terms of what we make through our skin for those of us who are covered. So for myself, for example, when I'm out, I'll be covered for religious reasons. It can be for other people as well who don't get enough for whatever, maybe they've got a skin complaint and they need to cover up. Maybe it could be for some other reason. It's something that we need to look at because, we might be suboptimal for that reason. But then there are those people equally who may be overly exposed to sunshine, like the menfolk perhaps, babies, the elderly, children, people who are working out in the open. These people may be overly exposed. So there are, the both levels of argument that you need to look at and groups of individuals to see how sun exposure will affect them. So, preparation is required for each of these individuals when you're out and about, whether that be that you need more sun exposure or less, and how you go about doing this. It goes without saying, though, whatever the situation may be, that we need to protect our skin despite trying to get the benefits from damage that may be caused by sun's rays. And this could be by utilizing appropriate skin creams. Obviously, this is more relevant to those of us with more skin exposure and those of us who have more sensitive skin. So be sure to check out what's going to work for you. The big question I'm sure everyone listening that they're going to have and want to ask is, what should they be doing to get the benefit but then avoiding the damage? And what kinds of creams they should be perhaps purchasing, and how and when to use them. The information, like I said, online can be quite conflicting. It can be quite difficult to understand. So what I would suggest is to do your own research to find that suitable product. Now, focus on skin protecting ingredients that are safe and effective, and utilize these as per the instructions on the product that you actually go ahead and buy. Common ingredient that you will find in sun creams is zinc oxide. So read around, be informed, see what you actually need and what you don't need, and then select products that are going to give you the protection that you need depending on where you're going, what time of day you're out, the kind of skin that you have, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then be informed. Utilize the product sensibly and safely, and get the balance that you need to be able to get the benefit from the sun's rays whilst protecting yourself from harm. It's all about being sensible and responsible at the end of the day. What do I mean? Is it just about creams? Well, not really. You want to stay sun safe. You want to avoid the sun at peak times. Normally this is 11 to 3 o'clock, but it can vary because I know we've probably been getting a lot more sun before 11 a.m. I don't know if you've experienced the same. And then we're getting sort of sun later on in the day as well, so past the 3 o'clock mark. Seek out shade wherever possible. Use appropriate skin protection, as I've mentioned, for your eyes, for your face, for your body. Think about wide-brimmed hats, clothing that's appropriate, so you might want to go longer sleeved at times of the day, sunglasses with UV protection, etc. So there's lots of things that you can do in addition to just using screens or sunblocks, and you want to try and get the benefit utilizing all of these measures combined. It's not just about being irresponsible and saying, I'm going to use a sun cream, I'm going to be fine. That's not the case. So what else can you do? Well, this is something that I actually learned as I started to study nutrition, because I wasn't really aware of this, and it's actually a very interesting area to look into, not just for the summer, but for other seasons as well. So what do I mean? Eating seasonally. Now, in nutritional medicine, I advise my clients to consume foods that are in season and grown locally. Now, in the UK, we're very blessed. We're very lucky. We're very fortunate. We've got ample supply of food, and food is available to us at all times of the year. So it's quite difficult as a lay person, as a person who's perhaps not aware of this eating seasonally concept, to have access to whatever you want, whenever you want. So you may not understand that actually foods don't grow and are not at their prime at every season of the year. Yeah, so this is more kind of obvious in other countries, maybe developing countries, countries abroad. I think because we're being in the westernized societies that we are, and because convenience is just so, it's just so easy for us, we have access to these foods at all times, we kind of overlook this kind of concept. So it's something that we need to educate ourselves on. In some respects, we do see more produce because of the seasonal changes. That does help. So, for instance, we're going to see melons at this time of the year. We're going to see more berries. We don't necessarily see those in the winter, for example. So we do know that that's a seasonal food for the summer. Likewise, in the winter, we're more likely to see squashes, more sort of courgette type vegetables. We're going to see the warming vegetables and fruits, etc., that we may not necessarily see in the summer. So we do see these things, but we're perhaps not so much tuned into it because of the availability of food all year round. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about going organic, even though that is what we want to work towards. Organic is expensive, it's difficult, it's not something that each and every one of us can do, but it's something that we want to work towards. Many of us will be focusing on how we can get our nutrients in, let alone focusing on organic. And that's absolutely amazing. It's what you want to be doing. And I would encourage that at all means and levels. Regenerative farming is a really good thing to look into in terms of trying to eat better, trying to eat local. And you may even find that a lot of these foods are not sprayed. They're going to be produced by farmers on a local level, and they're producing them in a way that's kind of very similar to organic, if not organic. So this is something that you can kind of tap into, get in touch with your local farmers, start going out and looking for these places. They do exist. They may be hard to find. They might be fewer in number now than they were, but they do exist. So it's something that, you can look into. And get your children involved. If they can kind of see what's out and about, what is kind of, what is constituting good health, where these foods are growing, how they're growing, appreciating nature, appreciating the way life form exists, they will want to get involved later on at a deeper level as well. So it's not, a case of, if we want courgettes or we want spices, we just pop into the local supermarket and pick them up from there. And that's the end of the story. We want to be educating ourselves, but educating our families, particularly the younger generation, so that they make these changes part and parcel of their lives in a much natural way, in a much kind of normal and accepting way than we're having to do now when we're trying to undo things and then redo things. It's a really good way to incorporate good foods into your diet, more cost effective. You're supporting local businesses, so it's a win-win situation. In the past, I have mentioned how you can actually look at the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So you can actually go online and put these into your search engine. You'll find a list of foods which we call the Dirty Dozen. So these are foods that you want to try and consume organically because they are sort of pesticide laden. You want to kind of limit your pesticide, your toxin exposure. So think about foods with skins on. So bananas, avocados. You can consume a lot of these with the skin on. So you can consume them in terms of, you can purchase them, with the skin on, because they will have taken a lot of the pesticide on the outside, but you get rid of it when you peel them. So you can consume these from a conventional perspective. It doesn't have to be bought organically. However, there are foods like berries, like apples, like peaches and plums that you want to consume organically because you're going to get a lot of toxin exposure. Because the skin is so thin, you've got absorption of these nutrients. So you want to kind of balance out what you can actually go and consume organically within your budget, but then what you can consume from a conventional perspective, normally, as in normally grown, without sort of causing that same level of toxin exposure. So use the Dirty Dozen list to help you, and then look at the Clean 15, what you can actually consume in its kind of conventional form. and not worry about sort of having to go down the organic route. Foods have an energetic component which alters throughout the seasons, and we can find that diets now we should be reflecting this so that our bodies will adapt better to the season that we're in. Now, this is a concept that we find in traditional Chinese medicine, and it links the concept of eating seasonal foods to better adaptation of our bodies, and in turn, having that better health during that particular season. So summer is dominated by heat, by inflammation, by that kind of it's kind of very much kind of an active phase in our bodies where we're sort of experiencing these kinds of symptoms, and that excess heat is what can cause imbalance. So based on your own tolerances, your own preferences, your own kind of allergies, whatever it may be, you might want to look into incorporating foods such as salads and leafy greens. Think about spinach, rocket, parsley, watercress, spring onions, cucumber, asparagus. These are all in season right now. Think about how you can incorporate these now. So, you can do these as salads. A plain salad, you can do them as a smoothie. You can put them into a stir fry. You can have them raw. There's so many ways that you can actually incorporate these. Vegetables that you should be thinking about at this time of year: cucumbers, so cucumber sticks with some hummus, easy snack to have. Celery, great option for cleansing as well. Courgette, chard, broad beans are in season right now. Fruits such as blueberries, strawberries, cherries, blackcurrants, melons of every type, as I mentioned before. Melons make a great smoothie as well. So, when you kind of get to that end stage and you're like, I can't have any more of this melon, put it into your smoothie and consume it that way. Think about cooling herbs. Mint is great. The mint tea is just like amazing at this time of year. Again, if you can't have it hot, make it as a tea, a light to cool down, and then consume it that way. Think about coriander, very cooling, cleansing, detoxifying. Watercress, sage, dill. All of these herbs are amazing to kind of consume in your foods. Add them to things that you wouldn't normally add them to. So your curries, your roast. You want to try and experiment with recipes that utilize these herbs. When you start growing your own, you've got no excuse for not adding them to your food, and they're so easy to grow. So think about creating a windowsill garden. These are so easy to grow. Get your kids involved. Try and make these part and parcel of your daily, your existence. So how can you start making change if you're finding it difficult? So in clinics, I find that the biggest change that I can make, and most clients are struggling with, is breakfast. So if you can do a good breakfast, you're doing really well. Now, as I mentioned before, you don't want to be doing coffee and stimulants first thing waking in the morning to get you up and going. It's just not conducive to good health. You want to be thinking of a hearty breakfast, make it nutritious, add your healthy fats and proteins, make it big, make it sort of satisfying that you can go a long time without feeling hungry. You want to balance your blood sugars for your first meal and other meals throughout the day, even snacks if you consume them. Make it the most important meal of your day. It deserves it. It's so important. We need to be eating our breakfast with such due diligence. It's going to do you such wonders if you actually make it, important as it should be. Think about eggs. If you consume eggs, think about having fish. Have a nice smoothie. Think about your nut butters if you can consume them. Think about adding chia and flax. Think about utilizing other healthy fats like coconut, in moderation occasionally. Olives are great, avocados. You can have these as salads, you can have them as dips. It's such an easy way to incorporate foods into your diet. A breakfast does not have to be cereal based. You can have a healthy meal. If you go to Europe, If you go to other parts of the world, like the Asian countries, they have a meal for breakfast. So, it doesn't have to be a cereal. It doesn't have to be a coffee. It doesn't have to be a croissant. It doesn't have to be that way. We want to be putting in nutrients, getting our body in the best state for it to function for the rest of the day. What you want to do is make them nourishing, as I mentioned. Think variety, think about chia puddings, think about overnight oats. So many easy ways that you can do this. You don't want to be skipping breakfast. You want to be doing lots of things that are going to give you that kind of interest in making breakfast your favorite meal of the day. If you're busy in the mornings, prepare, like I said, chia puddings, overnight oats, boil some extra eggs, have them ready to go in the morning. You could have them with a wholemeal toast if you want. It's so easy. Add some nuts to your breakfast, your smoothie on the side. You can really make that meal special. And I mean, we do it on a regular basis, and it does make a whole load of difference. You can do green smoothies, you can do superfood smoothies, you can do breakfast smoothies, berry smoothies, you can do, healthy fat smoothies. If you Google these things, you will find so many different types of recipes. The options are endless. Another thing that comes up during the summer, and rightfully so, because it's a really nice part of, the summer season, is barbecuing. And it's an activity that we enjoy with our families, with our friends, a very much social kind of necessity, so to speak, I think. I think I enjoy the social side of it more than the actual food side of it. But, we all have our kind of take from a barbecue. So, having that lovely grilled meal with family and friends on those lovely hot summer evenings, definitely experience that you want to kind of hold on to and remember, especially when you're in the winter months, when you're looking forward to the next summer. We want to make sure that the food that we consume on the barbecue is healthy and nutritious, and we're not causing any undue harm to our health. So the concerns around barbecuing are becoming more and more well known, and I don't want to get into the technicalities of it, but what we want to try and do is avoid eating burnt food. Now, this can easily be done when we're barbecuing, because remember, we're getting to very high temperatures and the food is exposed to naked flames. So what we want to try and do is cook the food. First of all, making sure that we're choosing nutritious food options that we're putting on the barbecue in a healthy way, and so that we're getting the nutrients that we need and not exposing our body to harmful chemicals that can be generated during the cooking process. So grilled meats are a particular concern. So I'm going to talk to you about what you can actually do. So what we want to do is we want to opt for leaner cuts of meat and fish. We want to grill at lower temperatures, and we want to avoid the burning. And if you are charring your meat, you want to first of all avoid that as far as possible. And secondly, you want to take the char off the meat. So you don't want to be consuming these kinds of foods as far as you can help it. What can you actually do? Number one, you're going to be using you're going to be marinating your meat. So you want to try and make extra marinade. So what I'd suggest is, if you're making a portion of marinade for your lamb chops or your fish or your chicken drumsticks or whatever it is you're going to put on your barbecue, make another portion. So do 2, and make sure you're actually coating your meat twice as thick if you can. I know it's difficult because it's going to be dripping off, but you want to get it to that stage. You want to marinate your meat as thoroughly as possible. So you want to make it really well coated. Utilize antioxidant oils that are subject to high smoke points. You don't want to be going for oils that are going to, become damaged at these temperatures. You want to utilize things like apple cider vinegar. It's going to add nutrition to your food, as well as make it flavoursome, as well as protect the food. And then think about garlic, herbs and spices, because these are going to help with the nutrition content as well as protect the food as well. So you want to utilize all of these methods and measures when you're firing up that barbecue. Now, don't make it all about the meat. Remember, meat is hard to digest and it generates more body heat. So minimize your meat consumption in the summer and opt for the plant-based options instead. So think about vegetable burgers in place of meat. I know it's not as fun, but give yourself that variety. Give yourself the option to do that. Add veggies to your barbecue. So think color, think variety. As I've mentioned before, you want to consume the rainbow to get your vitamins, your nutrients, your phytonutrients, your antioxidants. You want to be able to think about using maybe vegetables that you haven't consumed before, possibly. So think about asparagus. If you've never consumed it before, might be amazing on a barbecue. Think about vegetable kebabs, as I've mentioned. Sweet potatoes are great. Yams. Think about mushrooms. Mushrooms are amazing for immune system support. And corn on the cob. You know, all of these, consume them alongside of your meat options and make your barbecue a healthy, balanced meal. You don't want to just be doing it just for the fun of it. You want to be consuming food, you know, in a nutritious and balanced way, whilst enjoying the social and the community aspect of it. So these things are things that we can actually consider and take on board. There are many more. I'm not going to go into them today, but I'm sure that these are going to give you some ideas about what you can start to think about and incorporate. I'm sure you're doing them already. Maybe tweak a little. Think about your family while you're out on these days. Think about what you can do to get them involved. You know, the summer's a great time to be able to do this. And then do your own research. Look at what else is available to you online. You'll find lots of summer health tips out there that might be specific to you. When you're in doubt, you know, seek advice from your medical practitioner, your nutritionist, whoever you may be working with. But, you know, make it a learning experience and do the same for other seasons, because you'll find that your body will change. Your needs will change as the seasons change. And this is something big that I came to learn about myself. So I hope what you've heard today has been insightful and gets you looking into what could work for you while seeking support from your own healthcare provider. I would love to hear your thoughts, and all feedback is always welcome. Greatly appreciated, as you know. I'm really grateful for another opportunity to connect with you. I hope you keep well over the summer. You know, look into what's available out there, make the most of it. And I look forward to speaking to you again. Take care until next time. Wassalamu alaikum.